All right, so just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded and it will be available on our website and the Water Rights YouTube channel. So hi everyone, my name is Bridget Charlebois and I'm an engineer with the Adjudication section at the Utah Division of Water Rights. And today I will be presenting on the Willow Creek Subdivision proposed determination. We also have Michael Drake, the Assistant State Engineer for Adjudication, and Ryan Broadbent, the Engineering Manager for Adjudication, on the call as well. And they'll be here to assist with questions at the end as well. So about today, we're going to be talking about the Willow Creek proposed determination. And the goal of today's presentation is to talk about the adjudication process and give an introduction to the proposed determination and how to interface with it. So the agenda for today's presentation, we're talking about the adjudication process and where the Willow Creek proposed determination stands in that process, as well as giving an overview of the proposed determination. I'll go through each of the components and how to read each of those pieces, as well as the hydrographic survey map and what that represents. And then I will be discussing how to access each of these documents, and you should have received a notice in the mail that also outlines these instructions and probably told you about this meeting today. And then finally, we will finish up with a question period where you can ask questions to us live by raising your hand or putting it in the chat. And if you don't want to ask the questions today or you think of something later, you can also email us to this email on the screen and we can get back to you to try to help you with your question. So moving on to just a general explanation of what is an adjudication and why are we doing this. So a general stream adjudication is an action that's in a state district court, and the purpose is to join all of the water users within a stream drainage and the state engineer as parties in a litigation. And so this adjudication process is governed by Utah State Code Title 73, Chapter 4, and it's used to determine the nature and extent of all the existing water rights within each river drainage. So you can see here on this map that every major river drainage in the state of Utah is currently or has been under a general stream adjudication order. And due to the size and the growth within each of these river drainages, we often split these areas into smaller areas, so into both divisions and subdivisions. So right now, today, we're looking at the Utah Lake Jordan River Division, and within that, the Willow Creek Subdivision. And so why are we performing these adjudications? I like to think of it as sort of like a census of that. A couple reasons why we perform this is to bring all of the claims onto the permanent record. So they might have pre-statutory claims that were used before the Water Rights Division of Water Rights existed and need to be brought onto the record, as well as federal reserve rights. A second reason is to prevent a multiplicity of suits and to bring clarity to the water rights picture. So we have all of the water rights in this area in a court case together to try to limit there being multiple court cases going on. The third reason is to remove and reduce rights which have been wholly or partially forfeited through non-use. So one way to think of this is you have paper water and then you have physical water. And we're trying to bridge that gap between the two to try to really represent what's going on. And the fourth reason is to obtain a final comprehensive decree on all of the water rights within the respective drainage. So here is an outline of the adjudication process. And here's each of the steps that we have completed in the Willow Creek subdivision and where we are today and what still needs to be done. So I'm going to go over this a little bit more in detail. And so the adjudication process, as I said, is a statutory process that allows us to come and evaluate water rights in an area and then recommend them to a court with the final goal being a decree. So you can sort of split this process into 3 phases, which they are color-coded like this on the diagram. So the first phase you can call the initiation phase. And how that starts is in 1944, there was a petition to the court to perform an adjudication in the Utah Lake and Jordan River Division. And then in 2018, a notice was published in the newspaper to start an adjudication in the Willow Creek Subdivision. So then in August 2018, a summons was sent out to all registered property owners, registered agents, and water right owners in that area, letting them know that this process was going to begin. So then we held a public meeting in August 2018 to discuss the adjudication process and to describe what that was going to look like moving forward. So then that moves us into the second phase, which is sort of the claim filing phase. So the first part of that was in August 2018. There was a publishing and mailing out of a notice to file claims, sending that again to property owners, water right owners, to fill out a water user's claim. And this is so they could put down any water that they were using for a water right that at that time. So after the notice to file claims 90-day period, we published a list of unclaimed rights, or as we call it, a LUR. And the LUR has rights that exist on our record, but there was no claim filed for those rights. So after the LUR was published, we had a 90 days for someone to file an objection to the LUR. And so you might file an objection to that to say, oh, that's actually my water right, and I would like it removed from the LUR. And during that 90-day period to file objections, we held a public meeting to sort of discuss the objection process, how you would go forward with that, and what you would need in order to get your right removed off the LUR. So after the 90 days was done in September 2019, we had an objection resolution period where we took all of those objections that were filed, tried to come to a solution, and then eventually we filed it with the court and got an interlocutory decree declaring all of the rights on the LUR as abandoned. And this prohibits future unknown claims to be asserted. So all of the unclaimed rights have now been listed as abandoned. So then that moved us into the third phase, the claim investigation and proposed determination phase. And so during this, from 2018 to 2022, we performed claim investigations on all of those water user claims that were filed in the Willow Creek area. And so what we did is we went out in the field, we investigated these claims, and then we took all of our state engineer recommendations on each of the claims that were filed, and we compiled them into what we call a proposed determination documentation. So this was filed with the court on July 7th, 2022. And once that was filed, that opens up the 90-day objection period, which ends October 5th, 2022. And then that brings us to today. So right now we're in that 90-day period and we're holding a public meeting in order to explain to you more about the proposed determination process and how you might file an objection to the proposed determination if you choose to do so. And the ultimate goal is after the 90 days, then we would perform objection resolution again and file with the court and have an interlocutory decree on all of the rights in the Willow Creek subdivision. So now I'm going to go through the proposed determination document and all of the parts within it and sort of explain that in more detail. And so the contents of a proposed determination include a title page, notice to water users, a preamble, a location map, priority schedule, description of water rights, description of share statements, disallowed rights, and an alphabetic index. So I will be going into each of these more in depthly. So starting with the title page, a couple things to note when looking at this. The first is the district court that has jurisdiction over this adjudication court case. So in the instance of Willow Creek, it's the Third Judicial District Court. The second thing to note is the general adjudication description and civil case number. So you can see the civil number is listed here for this specific court case. And then also we have the hydrologic division and subdivision name. So we're in the Salt Lake County East Division, and we're looking at the Willow Creek Subdivision. And how we recognize this book in the state engineer records is we give it an area number. So it's area number 57, and then book 25, which references Willow Creek Subdivision. So moving on to the notice to water users, some key parts to know on this page. Again, you have the civil case number. So this is important. If you need to file an objection, you're going to need to know the court case number. And then below this, we have the instructions on how to file an objection during this 90-day period that we are currently in. So moving on to the next part of the proposed determination, we have the preamble. So the preamble sort of it's more of an in-depth description of different parts of the proposed determination and each of the sections that make it up. And one key part to note in the Willow Creek preamble is the prior decree section. So this proposed determination includes any prior decrees in this subdivision, and you can read each of these decrees in their entirety on our website if you would like. But the main idea here is that we took into consideration any decrees that had already been established in this area and encompassed them in our recommendations and in our evaluation of this area. So the next thing you will find in the proposed determination is the location map. So this map outlines the boundaries of the Willow Creek subdivision. And in our investigation, we only investigated water rights that have a point of diversion within these boundaries. So some main boundary points that we can look at here, we have the Jordan River to the west, and then a series of canyons to the east. So you have Dry Gulch, Rocky Mouth, Big Willow, and Little Willow Canyon. And then you have two main roads to the north and south of this subdivision. So next we have the priority schedule of the proposed determination. So this is important in Utah because water is distributed based off prior appropriation. So this means that if their shortages were to happen, the priority date determines who would receive their water first. It's the basis for the distribution of water. So some key things to look at on this page. So first you have the water source. So you can see some of the sources on this page are Bell Canyon, Big Willow Creek, as well as Little Willow Creek. Then next you have the priority date. So the priority date is the original date the water was put to use. And again, that's used in a distribution schedule when there are shortages in water. Next, you're going to have either a flow rate or an annual volume. So the flow rate is in cubic feet per second and the volume is in acre feet. And this defines the quantity of water that can be put to use on this water right. Next, you have the water right number. So this is how we identify water rights on the state engineer records. So all of the water rights in the Willow Creek subdivision start with a 57. And then it's dashed the specific water right number. And then finally, on here, you have the owner of record. One thing to note is that the owner of record may not be the person who is currently using the water right. The county recorder's office is actually the official office of record for ownership. So if you need to update, if you are not the owner on file, but you are the owner with the county recorder's office and you need to update the title, that is something that our office can help you do. And you'll have to submit a report of conveyance in order for you to get your name on our records as the So next we're going to move into the description of water rights. And so this is the listing of all of the rights that we are recognizing in the proposed determination. And so I have some examples up here and I'm going to go through each of the different parts that are represented for each individual water right. So starting out again, you have the water right number. So this is our identification number for each water right on the state engineer's record. Then you have the name, the owner of record, and sometimes when there's multiple owners, we'll put an owner interest remark. So splitting up the breakdown of each of those owners who share a common water right. So then here we have the type of right, an application number, and the quantity of water. So in this specific example, the type of right is an application to appropriate, and then you can see the application number below it. And then the quantity of water is, again, either a volume or a flow, defining the quantity of water that can be put to use on this right. So then over to the right, you have the priority date and the source. And so this defines when the water was first put to use and from what source the water is diverted from. So below this, you have the point of diversion location and well data if that is available. And so in this example, we have where the water is diverted from the natural environment, and how we describe these points of diversion is using the public land survey system. And so this description gives you a section, a township, and a range. Examples of different points of diversion. It could be either your well, or it could be the diversion from a creek, such as this. And so that is the legal description of where the point of diversion for this water right is coming from. So next you have a water use group number. So water use group numbers are used to group together rights that maybe have a common use or in place of use, or to describe a water use. So in this example, this water right is the only one in its use group. And so then below the water use group, you have the nature of beneficial use that is used in that water use group. So you can have different types of natures of use. In this example, it's an irrigation use. There also could be stock watering, domestic, other uses, as well as municipal. And this describes how the water is allowed to be placed to beneficial use. Now, each nature of use has a period of use. So in this area, the irrigation season is described as April 1st to October 31st. For domestic use, you would probably have a year-round use, so that would be listed as January 1st to December 31st. So then you have a sole supply for a group. So this defines the amount of beneficial use, the quantification. So in this right, it has a sole supply of 93 acres of irrigation that can be used. And then you also have a group total for every water use group. Looking at this water right, the sole supply and the group total are equal because just this one right makes up that group. But if you were to have multiple rights in a group, you would have multiple sole supplies, and those combined would make up the group total of water that is allowed to be used for this specific use. So here we have a place of use matrix, which describes where the water in this group is allowed to be used. And how we represent that is we have sections, townships, and range where the water is being used. And then we separate that down a little further into quarter sections within that section. And then within those quarters, we split that into quarter sections, and we identify where that water is placed to use specifically within that section. So you can see here in this example that the place of use is listed as quarters as well as lots. So the X's mark where this water right is allowed to be used in different lots and quarter sections. And then to the right of this, we list the acreage total allowed in each specific section, and then those combined make up that group total amount, again, of 93 acres. And the last thing to look at on description of allowed water rights is some water rights will have a general comment or other comment section. And this is just for us to add any more information that needs to be identified for that specific water right. So in this example I have here, we have a comment saying this right is based on an award in the 1897 Rocky Mouth Creek Decree. And so that's just defining that this right was already involved in a court decree, and just defining that that is where the basis of this water right is coming from. So now we'll move on to the description of share statements section. So I just want to clarify that share statements are not water rights, but they're rather a representation of a shareholder's use of water from an underlying irrigation company water right. So share statements that have been certificated because they had a change application on them are included in the proposed determination for informational purposes only. And share statements are not adjudicated for beneficial use, but they're rather validated based on the continued ownership of a quantity of shares. And the priority date of a share statement is based off its underlying water right within the irrigation company that the shares are held. So I'm going to point out a couple things to look for on a share statement. So I labeled this number here a file number instead of a water right number because, again, a share statement is not a water right. So the file number looks similar. It's the same 57 dash and then the specific number. So the ownership on a share statement, you're going to have both the owner of the shares, so who's on the deed owning those shares in the specific company, as well as that base company that the shares are coming from. So in this example, we have the owner and then West Crescent Irrigation Company. And then we also have this section called the share statement basis, and this is describing that this share statement is based off one share in the West Crescent Irrigation Company. You'll also see here, it says a change priority. So this is the priority date of the change application that was filed and certificated on the share statement. And last thing to note on share statements is this comment is going to be on every share statement. And it's sort of summarizing what I said earlier, that a share statement is based on ownership of stock in this West Crescent Irrigation Company. Ownership of this quantity of shares must be maintained in order for this share statement to remain valid. The priority date of this water right is based on the underlying water rights within said irrigation company. Moving on to the next section in the proposed determination, we have forfeited rights. So these rights are being recommended for forfeiture due to the evidence of non-use for a period of 7 years or more based off state statute. So a couple things to note when looking at forfeited rights is, again, you're going to have that water right number, which details how we file it and the state engineer's office, as well as the name of owner of record. And then again, you're going to have the point of diversion that went along with this right, as well as its source. Moving on, we have invalid claims. So these rights are being disallowed due to their invalid, meaning there is no legal basis for these rights. They do not meet the standards outlined in state statute. So an example of this was maybe someone was claiming pre-statutory use without having proper documentation to back it up, or a claim that did not follow the proper procedure. And a specific example could be maybe someone was drilling a well after 1935 when they were required to have an application to appropriate, and they did not have the proper paperwork to do so. So that made the claim invalid. So a couple of things to look for on these. Again, you're going to have a water right number, the name of the owner of record, and finally the point of diversion and source that went along with these claims. So the last section in the proposed determination is an alphabetic index. And so this lists water rights based off ownership alphabetically and shows the page number of the water rights in the proposed determination. So it could be helpful if you're looking for something specific to go look at the alphabetic index. So here you're going to have the name of owner of record, the point of diversion source, the water right number, and the page number that it can be found in the proposed determination document. So moving on, along with compiling all of these rights into proposed determination, we also produce a hydrographic survey map. And what this is a visual record of the findings of the water uses in this geographic subdivision. So there's a few pieces to go over when looking at the hydrographic survey maps. The first is each page in the map is going to have a north arrow, scale, and a scale bar. And so it's important to know that the scale might be different on each page. So that's important to look at. The next thing is you're going to have a map legend on each page describing what is portrayed in the map itself. So a couple of things that might be shown here is you're going to have the book boundary, again, public land survey descriptions of points of diversion, and we'll show both allowed, disallowed, and abandoned points of diversion on this map. And then also we represent water use groups. And if that water use group has irrigation, we map out that area as a polygon as the recognized use that goes along with that group. So on this page that I'm showing here, you can see this pink polygon represents the irrigation area for a specific water group. And the last thing to know on looking at pages in the hydrographic survey map is the map location of the current page you are viewing is represented in the white box, and then it shows you where it lies within the subdivision itself. And all of the mapping that is performed in these hydrographic survey maps will also be integrated to our online mapping software that you can access from our website. So now I'm going to go over how to access the proposed determination. So most of you probably received a notice of the proposed determination. So this got sent out to water right owners listed on the records of the state engineer, as well as claimants who submitted claims to the Willow Creek Adjudication, registered agents for corporate entities owning water rights or having filed claims within the adjudication boundary, and finally, counsel of record who have filed an appearance in the court. So the proposed determination can be accessed via our website. So if you go to www.waterrights.utah.gov/pdbook/Willow Creek PD, that will bring up the PDF of the proposed determination. You also can get hard copies printed out at our office for a fee, and it's also been filed at the district court. And then if you would like to access the hydrographic survey map, it's very similar. You go to our website and you go to -pdbooks-Willow Creek HS for hydrographic survey, and hard copies can be viewed at our office. So who can I contact to discuss the adjudication process? So if you have more questions and you would like to contact somebody at our office, you can contact me. Again, my name is Bridget Charlebois. I'm an adjudication engineer, and this is my phone number and email. You can also talk to Michael Drake, who's here on the call today. He's the assistant state engineer in the adjudication section, as well as Ryan Broadbent, who's the adjudication engineering manager. If you can't reach any of us, you also can just call our general adjudication line, and they will get a hold of somebody who can help you out. as well as just coming into our office. We have a great public inquiry team who would love to assist you with any questions that you have as well. So that concludes my presentation for today. I hope that was helpful in explaining the proposed determination, the adjudication process, and the Willow Creek subdivision. And so we can now take questions. You can either ask them to us live, put them in the chat, or if you don't want to ask them today, you can send them to this email and we will get to them eventually.
Okay. Got a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
I'm representing Willow West Crescent Irrigation, and I saw that we are in there and we're listed. So does that mean that we are a part of this and that we don't have to worry that we have been adjudicated already, so that we're within our rights to continue to have water?
Yeah, so your rights are included in this book, but I would take a further investigation. If you want to, you can go on our website and look at your specific water rights and see what we represented in the proposed determination. Yeah, you are included in this book, and I can also show you how to find it on our website if you would like, but I would recommend taking a look at the proposed determination and looking at the rights that are under your company's name.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to leave. That's what was my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How do I leave? Just
Yeah, you press the red button.
the red button?
Yeah.
Bridget, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. This is Mike Freckleton. I had a couple of questions for you. Question number one, we have recently purchased a piece of property that we're hoping to build a home on there in the subdivision. There's obviously a creek bed there, Big Willow Creek, but no water runs through it, not even when there's a lot of snow melt and all. I think that creek has been diverted and is going somewhere else now. And I'm wondering, is that planned for? Is that on purpose? And would that creek ever be returned to normal function?
Big Willow Creek is pretty much already appropriated by Draper Irrigation Company. Most of the canyon creeks up there are, and they're pretty much diverted higher up. I don't know that there is any intent to ever make those creeks run again. Their applications to appropriate were approved in the 40s, and they've been pretty diligently using them since.
Okay, so that's gone. No chance of getting that back, huh?
It may come back. Probably no chance of ever getting another diversion off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably your drinking water. So it's a major source of water for that area. So it probably is part of the water that makes up what comes to you in your tap and you use for drinking water.
Okay, thank you. The second question that I had is one of the pieces of property that we purchased there, again for construction of our own home, that the owner of that property apparently did not file for water rights and lost those water rights. I'm guessing from what you said, Bridget, back in 2018. I don't know that for certain. I would like to be able to reapply for those. Can you give me some idea as to whether that's overly optimistic or whether that's a fait accompli and now we no longer have the water rights on that property?
Yeah, so I'm not sure on the specific right, but if they didn't claim that right and that right was listed on the list of unclaimed rights, that's already been decreed. So you wouldn't be able to bring those back. But if we just disallowed their right in this book, you could file an objection to that, but you'd have to investigate the specific rights they had and where they were. Yeah, it's a very specific situation, I guess.
Okay, so I can look up in the book the prior owner and all that, what information do I need to get back to you? Because it sounded like you just said that I needed to look that up and get that information back to you.
Yeah, so starting with the water right numbers that they owned at a certain time, that would be good information to know. You can also look on our map server on our website. You can pull up points of diversion, and it will show all of the water rights that existed in that area, and you could try to find the ones that are on your property if you can't get the specific number.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to pull up. There's a little tab that allows you to look at rights that have been abandoned or disallowed. They'll stop showing up standardly, but they are still available if you click some of the toggles.
Okay, so Ryan, thank you for that, and Bridget as well. When you say disallowed, then that was kind of my question: is if they have been abandoned, actually, is what I think it was considered as. The prior owner claimed that they had not received notice that they had to refile and that it had been lost or whatever. I'm just wondering what kind of likelihood for abandoned rights do we have of reclaiming those?
Yeah, so if a right has been listed as abandoned, that means that it was listed on the list of unclaimed rights, and that's already been decreed with the district court.
And so if it's already been decreed, are we able to petition for a reversal of that?
No, we're already out of that time period where that was a possibility.
The other option in some areas would be to file for a new water right. Unfortunately, this area is closed to appropriations, and so I guess that's the hard way of saying that there really aren't any options outside of purchasing a water right and moving it onto the property.
So even if the previous owner is able to prove that they never received notice,
the adjudication process is constructed in such a way that they may not have received, and I don't know what the situation is with that specific water right, but they may not have received that specific mailing because maybe their mailing address for the water right wasn't updated, or they had an updated title. State law says that they have a duty to do that so that we can contact people when needed. We also published it, the summons and a notice to file claims in the local paper, and so. Yeah, at least as far as statute is concerned, it meets the legal definition of contact. And and I know, I'm playing with words a little bit. I recognize that, but we do need to make this process function, and that's what our legislature has laid out for us.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
This is again Mike Freckleton. Just one other quick question. I can see on the other piece of property that we have, and this might pertain to some of the other people, I can see that there's a file number and all there. I just want to make certain that we know that means you're good to go. And is there any gotchas in there that somebody might come back and say, well, yeah, it was listed, but it was in jeopardy, and et cetera, because we don't want to lose the water rights.
What's the water right number? Let's just look at it.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what, let me look it up quickly because it's going to take me a second, and I'll let somebody else ask a question.
Address would work fine also if you have that.
Okay, yeah, it's I think it's 3002 Overland Road.
Actually, let me give you the water right number. It's 57-8889 is the one that's listed under the forfeited category.
Oh. Okay, so this is one that you could object to because it's in the disallowed status.
Okay.
So that 57-8889.
Okay.
We apparently made the assertion that we couldn't find any use of water, and so you'd have to address that that concern that we had and point out that we were, we didn't find it or that the water had been used.
Okay. Great. That was Dustin that was giving you that file number. Dustin, do you have the file number for the other property?
Yeah, I was going to suggest too, if we could, I'm happy to schedule a follow-up with Ryan and Bridget. If we do have a few claims questions, if that was okay, I can email you now and schedule something for tomorrow or next week.
Yeah.
So our office is out tomorrow and Monday, and we'll be back in the office on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. Monday's a state holiday.
Yeah, and our building is experiencing power outages tomorrow, so we're gonna be without facilities. So.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I mean, I will pause and allow anybody else, since there's only a few others on the call, to ask a question, and if not, then maybe we can just use the time and ask our very specific questions while we have folks on the call.
Leslie Jensen is the only other, we have a bunch of state engineer employees that are on, and so Leslie Jensen is the only other member of the public. So
That
Leslie,
might be the perfect time.
yeah.
Okay.
We could also, if you'd like, we could end the meeting and then just continue without the recording going, so that you don't have everything that gets posted up to YouTube, if you'd prefer.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, that would be
Okay.
great. How do you want to do that?
Maybe let's just open up to if there's any other questions, and Bridget, then you can go ahead and close.
Okay. If no one has any more questions, I think we will end the public meeting for today. And thank you everyone for coming, and I hope that was helpful in explaining the adjudication process for you.
It was,
Thank you,
Bridget.
Bridget.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop
Just
the
hang
recording.
on.
Okay.